Welcome to ESVN, the Emma Sports Vigland Network show. My name is Emma Vigland. First things first, subscribe to ESVN, youtube.com/ESVN show if you're listening on a podcast platform. Put on push notifications if you want to catch the stream live. You can IM us through the Majority Report app if you're a member of the Majority Report. Join themajorityreport.com. As well as if you are listening on podcast platforms, rate us 5 stars and like the stream if you can. Hello to Bradley.
Hello. Good afternoon.
No football this weekend.
No, just a Pro Bowl. Does that count?
No, absolutely not.
I could have played that game. I should have played that game.
Are the Mannings overexposed?
Yes. Without question.
It's hard for me to say this because I love Eli Manning. Like, you know, he's a wonderful personality in the NFL world. And in terms of, like, who I think is a nicer guy, definitely him over Payton. Like, I would...
Payton's got some skeletons in his closet.
Yeah, you know, some private parts on trainers' foreheads, for example.
They ultimately settled in court as to never speak about it publicly ever again.
Yeah, I mean, that's just smart business from a NFL legacy family, right? It was the same way that Eli avoided the Chargers, right? You got
He's like, do you know who my father is?
that they knew how to play the game. But some unlucky quarterbacks can get drafted to the Houston Texans this year who won't have the same pedigree,
the same fortune,
right? But yeah, it's just a little bit too much. Eli Manning, too much in the Dunkin' commercials, too much on New York Giants social media team, you know, doing stuff with Pete Davidson and the girl from Stranger Things. It's just like, let's just take a break. You've got enough money. I know where you live. Because not exactly where you live, but I know. Well, his daughters go to the all-girls school that I went to for high school.
I see.
So I've just heard a little bit. Like, I know how much money that guy has, and he does not necessarily need
to be doing DraftKings commercials with JB Smoove.
Oh my God, those are the other ones. It's just too much.
I'm fine. I'm okay with Cooper getting the bag. Cooper never had the opportunity to have a career.
Right.
And at least he's going to pay some dividends once Arch Manning starts playing at UT in the fall. So
that's incredible. Yeah. Although at the same time I'm like looking at Cooper Manning's career now. He's like some, you know, it works in an investment firm. He's a private equity kind of deal person. Whatever. Long story short, how are you? How was your weekend?
Weekend was fine. Weird not to have some games.
No, and no hockey either.
And
which makes sense. Good job, NHL. There's like a bye where there's no football on for 2 weeks, but they decide that's when we're gonna take our break because the sport, you know,
let's have a skills competition.
Yeah.
Let's have Connor McDavid shoot into an open net.
Yeah, it's just it's mind-blowing, especially when it comes out that the ESPN numbers, this new deal that they have going on with them is not going well for the NHL. They just decided to take this time off. That would make most sense, right? In the middle of February.
It's like, you know what? Money is not at a premium right now.
Yeah.
We don't have to worry about anything, right, guys?
A little bit.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Right, guys?
So
Gary Bettman's whistling past the graveyard.
Yeah, we'll raise the cap by $1 million
big bucks
this year. But let's actually talk about the NBA because trade deadline, Thursday at, when is the exact time? Thursday the 9th. I don't even know what time it is exactly, but either way, 3 p.m. Eastern. Okay, there we go.
So Thursday the 9th at 3 p.m. Eastern. Still a lot of time for stuff to happen.
We will know by ESVN OT what the final trade situation looks like in the NBA. But the big story over the weekend, Kyrie Irving to the Dallas Mavericks. And it's a perplexing deal for Dallas, in my opinion.
I think it's perplexing sort of for both teams.
You're right. This is one of the lose-lose trades. Even though I would rather be Brooklyn in this situation, you get two viable players in Dorian Finney-Smith, and then they get somebody that they know well back in Spencer Dinwiddie.
Right. Yeah, and the thing is, it is hard.
And a future first round pick in like
which is
30 million years from now. But
in time that does not exist.
But it's still a first round pick.
Yeah, the thing for me with this is interesting is that I do think it's hard to necessarily say from the outset before there's like any data on it who wins or loses the trade. We can really only go for like what's on paper, in the sense that I kind of felt similarly with the Sabonis-Halliburton trade between the Kings and the Pacers. I was slightly worried that both teams did not benefit fully from that trade, and yet honestly, both of the guys on in that respective trade became all-stars. Like,
yeah.
I think so. Like, that's one of them where I think initially I had doubts, but it ultimately turned out well. But then there's also
Halliburton's still good. Shockingly,
right, shocker, right. And then also, but then there are trades like the DeJounte Murray trade to the Hawks, where I actually thought that might kind of give the Hawks a jump start in their offense, and they've kind of been floundering this entire season. So
everyone thought that they won that trade.
Right.
It's literally impossible. Not impossible, but we could be totally wrong on this,
exactly.
And they could Luca Doncic and Kyrie Irving could be sharing the backcourt for years and years to come. But something tells me that that's not going to happen.
But I think how we come at this though in terms of looking on paper is you wonder how will the Dallas offense function with some of its spacing and playmaking kind of taken away. I mean, Kyrie obviously is a playmaker in his own right, but both him and Luca kind of need the ball to function and to operate the way that they operate best. And losing Spencer Dinwiddie, who in his own right was a great scorer.
One of the only consistent pieces for the Mavericks this year is my understanding.
Absolutely. Yeah, there was Dinwiddie, like, I think while sort of inconsistent, he definitely contributed to some of the best stretches, both when Luca was healthy and when he wasn't. Like, he was always kind of a release valve for this team. And I think it's hard to overstate how important, as much as he might not be a sexy name, but Dorian Finney-Smith was very integral to how the Mavericks offense functioned, and actually the whole team.
Their
functioned.
defense is what, their bottom third, bottom fourth of the NBA in their like points per game or whatever defensively, something like that. Dorian Finney-Smith seems like, again, just from the outside, not a Mavericks fan, but from what I've read and what I've seen, one of the only positive defensive players on that team.
And that's, I think, the thing is, I was saying this to you earlier, but when we talk about 3-and-D players, sometimes that term can be overused, or kind of the actual terminology of that phrase can kind of be flattened to like just like anyone can be a 3-and-D player, but like Dorian Finney-Smith actually is a 3-and-D player, and that like his two greatest assets on an NBA team are to reliably knock down threes and play good perimeter defense. And
so that's definitionally a 3-and-D player.
He is actually definitionally a 3-and-D player. And I think those two assets for the Nets, I actually think if Kevin Durant, and we'll obviously get to this, if Kevin Durant is pleased and decides to stay, and there doesn't continue to be as much rancor in Brooklyn beyond this trade, I think the Brooklyn Nets outlook in the roster, especially without the headache of just having Kyrie Irving on your team, might be okay. But on the other hand, that's a big if, whether in terms of whether Durant does actually want to stay and does actually want to keep playing for the Nets. And we'll also have to see how Luca and Kyrie fit together on both ends of the floor.
Let's just backtrack for 1 second to talk about how it got to this point, because obviously they traded Irving a few days before the trade deadline came around. And partly that was because Kyrie Irving took to, was it Shams who said this, that he would leave in free agency if not traded?
Shams Charania, aka the Kyrie Irving stenographer.
They clearly have a relationship. There was some report, and I don't want to misattribute it to Shams, but I think it was him, that where they said, Kyrie Irving has asked for a trade, and he will, with the added sweetener of he will leave in the offseason if he is not traded, which means you better get your assets now because I'm gonna leave if you screw me over. And it also seemed like if he didn't get what he wanted, he was not going to play for the rest of the year.
That's what I was just gonna say. Is there was also the added threat of him sitting out, which would have been a more difficult look, and we saw how that played out with Anthony Davis in New Orleans before he left for LA. It just builds acrimony, it builds resentment on both ends.
Let alone the already existing just complete layers of resentment
Absolutely.
that the Nets and Kyrie Irving already have towards each other, although clearly more justified, frankly, from the Nets' perspective.
Because of course we can it doesn't have to be repeated ad nauseum given how much this ground has been trodden, and also I think sometimes good basketball can sometimes be, or even just functional basketball can be, a sort of salvo for any off the court issues. But we can't forget that only about 2 or 3 months ago, this team was embroiled with a scandal of the day of what Kyrie was posting on social media, what he was promoting, how he was reacting to what he was promoting and what he was tweeting, and the veins of pretty clear, pretty rampant anti-Semitism that he either directly or indirectly was fomenting as a result of what he was, publishing on his social media accounts and what he was saying out loud. So we can't forget that in the context of, his time with the Nets and why maybe it was more, why maybe the owner, Joseph Tsai, so adamantly wanted him to be gone, and maybe why he also didn't want to particularly do him any favors when shipping him off.
Yeah. So the only reason that this is also a bit of a loss for the Nets is because it seemed like Tsai deliberately directed him towards Dallas and away from both Los Angeles teams who could have provided a more substantial package back for them, according to reporting. And who knows, it's Monday morning quarterbacking, and maybe this is a way for the Nets to kind of have a narrative. Well, I guess that would actually make them look pettier. I'm trying to see who benefits from the media coverage of that package being, it could have been better. I don't know. I don't really know. Maybe it's like to cover for the fact that the Lakers did not get him. I'm working this out in my mind.
I think at the end of the day, regardless of, as you said, this is some kind of hindsight 2020 action from certain front offices saying, we had this great deal in place, but they didn't take us up on it. There was reporting that Jay Crowder and Chris Paul were on the table from the Suns. There was reporting that Terrence Mann and Luke Kennard, along with a pick, were available from the Clippers. There was some reporting that Max Christie, young guy in the Lakers, as well as Austin Reeves, were off the table because Kyrie was not willing to sign a 2-year, pretty top-heavy deal. I think he was looking for a more long-term, close to max extension. If any of that's true, if any of it isn't true, I think the only real stink that I think can linger on Joseph Tsai is not necessarily the terms of the deal, but the fact that if he was actually particularly adamant about shafting Kyrie at the expense of maybe trying to extract the most value in a trade for him.
Yeah.
If he was if it's possible that he did not want to send Kyrie to the Lakers because Kyrie wanted to go there, and the deal might have been better than what he got in Dallas, that seems to be more like settling a score or personal grudge than trying to make the team that you own a better basketball team.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if you can trust that reporting on it right now.
All this could just be total scuttlebutt.
We're
right?
not going to get the full picture until months later, most likely. But to that point, I do think that there is a more than 50% chance that Kyrie just leaves Dallas in the summer anyway. Unless they have an extension in place, some sort of agreement, that does not seem to be a given whatsoever. So then Dallas gives up 2 of its more important pieces, a few second-round picks and a future first for a guy that's a short-term rental.
Yeah, absolutely.
A short-term rental that doesn't actually make full sense with Luca being so it being so important that Luca is handling the ball, and the fact that they desperately need defensive help in Dallas. So the fit doesn't make sense on the surface, as well as the fact that there's a good chance that Kyrie Irving just isn't even there. It's just this is not a team that's one piece away to trade for and make a run for the NBA Finals. Right. I don't think that the Mavericks are close. They have one phenomenal player, and that's about it at this point, right? This is a bizarre. It makes more sense for the Lakers than it does the Mavericks.
Yeah,
and it makes more sense for the Clippers than it does the Mavericks.
Yeah, and I think I totally agree, and I also think that's the risk that you run as the Mavs, especially with not only, like you said, Kyrie's contractual situation going into this, but also his pretty established mercurial nature when it comes to being on an NBA team. When he got frustrated with his position relative to LeBron in Cleveland, he forced his way out. He became very quickly unhappy with his situation in Boston, forced his way out. He was attempting to force his way out even earlier in the season with Brooklyn, and then finally got his wish as those talks reignited. This is a pattern. It's hard to be, the team on the other end of the, that classic Arrested Development meme where it's like Tobias and Lindsay are like, only people who try and do this are completely deluding themselves. And then Tobias says, but we could do it.
But maybe it'll work for us.
But maybe it'll work for us.
Yeah.
That's kind of the Mavs in the sense of like thinking that he's just going to be like pleased with Dallas and that something won't rub him the wrong way or controversy won't follow him again. Like it is.
Well, I read this on the Ringer.
A lot on that.
Yeah,
I read factors.
I read this on the Ringer that maybe Cuban, because they were revisiting the Kristaps Porzingis trade. At the time, Porzingis, I'm not remembering the sequencing off the top of my head, but he was accused of rape, and they still signed him to that extension.
Yeah.
And he was dealing with a Knicks front office that was becoming disgruntled by Porzingis's brother being a particular thorn in their side in the middle of contract negotiations. So it is potentially a pattern that Cuban sees these guys as deficiencies in the market because, but basically that he can get them for lower value than their play would actually dictate. So he sees that he could exploit that potentially, but it didn't work out for the Porzingis trade at all. And I don't see this working out at all either. He could, just in terms of like getting controversial players to Dallas, and then it kind of burning them because there is some sort of perception about the value.
Yeah, I think it's really that to me is the biggest variable above all else is just what for the question that I have for the Mavs is simply what Kyrie Irving are you getting on and off the floor and for how long?
Yeah.
And that's really it because if you look at some of these numbers, I'll see if I can find I don't know if I have the exact numbers right in front of me, but the amount of minutes and the amount of games that Kyrie and Kevin Durant and even when James Harden was still in the mix played together was extremely minimal relative to what you would have probably expected that arrangement of players to play on a supposed, super team machination of like getting three superstar players together. It is hard to look back on the years where of the overlap of Kyrie, Harden, and KD, and then Kyrie and KD thereafter as kind of a failure of that experiment, only resulting in a first round sweep at the hands of the Celtics. Like it's a tough pill to swallow, I think, for the Nets and for Nets fans, and it's unfortunate, but I think that's the reason why I have those questions for Dallas is because those concerns reared their ugly head pretty early and often in Brooklyn when KD joined forces with another star as well. And it's happened before. I mean, when he was with LeBron, when he was with who was it? I don't even remember. Oh, gosh, that Celtics team feels like 1,000 years ago.
With Kyrie.
Yeah, I think that was. I think that was
it
pre.
It was Cavs
Jason.
to Celtics to Brooklyn. That's been his career.
Yeah, I don't even think I remember who he was. I don't even remember who he was playing with.
I mean, Tatum
Celtics
was
team.
there at that time.
Yeah, see, I'm not
right.
even remembering. I wasn't exact. I'm not even remembering whether those guys, the young guys, but I guess the young guys were.
They were there.
Ascending
That core was there.
At that time. Yeah. So I just think it's hard not to look at the recency of what he has experienced and what he's kind of participated in and say, oh yeah, like we can be the team to mitigate those concerns.
We can fix him.
Yeah.
I also think it is a larger there's a bit more of a reckoning that needs to happen, I think, with some of these NBA teams, seeing that building a super team through the means that was successful maybe 5 to 8 to 10 years ago in bringing a championship to your franchise. It's much more of a specific set of circumstances than has been more widely used over the past subsequent 5 or so years, right? Like I all of these teams that we're seeing have more durability. The Celtics and the Bucks in the East included have homegrown guys, drafted, developed, homegrown guys, and they were very smart about asset allocation. And that's not to say that the Nets or that the Celtics and the Bucks are the exact same, because I know that the Bucks they were active on the trade market to build up that core around Giannis. I get that. But they were not over aggressive for stars in the same way that the Nets and the Lakers have been over the past few years. And I think both of those franchises are in much darker spaces than the aforementioned ones.
Yeah, just a quick stat here. They listen, great work in these games. They went 13-3.
Yeah.
But Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Kevin Durant played just that 16 games together.
It's unbelievable.
Like 16.
Yeah.
Like barely a third of an NBA season they played together. And now the only person left is Kevin Durant.
I'll never forget when I got the news about where Kevin Durant was signing. I was on a train platform coming down from upstate New York, and it was the summer, and I saw it on my phone. And it was after this long, protracted period where it was a guarantee that he was coming to the Knicks. And there was a lot of disappointment. But in the end, I just sat there with my boyfriend, and we were like, I think there's just something about this that doesn't seem like it's going to work out, and it's a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, dodged a bullet there, right?
We did. We really did. Speaking of the Nets, the Knicks, that was a fun win. Was that last night? Yes, last night.
Against the Sixers?
Against the Sixers, yeah.
Yeah, I was impressed by how big the deficit was, given how close the Clippers game and the Heat game were.
Yeah, and it also impressed by some of the young guys, like Deuce McBride has been great coming off the bench.
This is I think the best Knicks games and the best permutations of the Knicks lineups that Thibodeau has been throwing out there has been, I think, really narrowing the rotation and emphasizing the young guys who are playing well.
Yeah.
And so I think, and I appreciate that McBride and Quentin Grimes have been rewarded for that. I still obviously would like. I think both of us will always want to demand that Obi Toppin gets more shine and more run, but
yeah, he might get dealt at the deadline, unfortunately.
And that's I guess what I'm curious about with the Knicks is if they stand pat or if they think that they can do something with a package of like Toppin and maybe Emmanuel Quickley or something like that. But we'll see.
That would be very sad to lose Quickley.
It seems like one of the biggest names on the hot stove, as it were, with the Knicks, but also just seemingly a few other teams as well. Especially if the Mavericks or others are not done or about to get started, is OG Anunoby on the Raptors. It seems like there's a lot of conversation, or at least rumors about him being dealt for a package. And then same thing, obviously, still with until it happens or until until the NBA disbands, we will always be receiving some sort of rumor or another about whether the Lakers will actually find someone to trade Russell Westbrook for.
Russell Westbrook will somehow be on the team in 10 years.
Yeah, just
for some reason he got an extension.
Standing in one corner, not running back on defense, bricking a 25-foot three with 19 seconds on the shot clock.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if the Lakers are actually going to be able to trade him at this point. I also am curious to see if Durant wants to stay in Brooklyn. The Nets might not be done. There have been rumors linking him to Phoenix for forever, and that could be a good opportunity for Phoenix to get off of that Chris Paul contract if Brooklyn's willing to absorb it, because that just seems like he's really fallen off this year, and it's just such a grueling regular season for him. But I don't know. I mean, if I were Durant and I wanted to get out of there, I feel like I'd want to go to Phoenix, someplace like that, play with Devin Booker, or maybe the Portland Trailblazers are interested in adding a big superstar because they have all their first round picks. But I just think Durant's gonna stay the rest of the year in Brooklyn and then reassess. That's what my gut feel says.
I think the trouble that the Nets had in the summer, which ultimately led to them not being able to trade Durant, is the fact that Durant is in this weird situation as a player in that despite the injury or the health concerns or the fact that he's kind of on the wrong side of 30 now, he is still just like, in terms of like a basketball, and I hate to use this word because I don't want to, I'm anti the whole like, oh, that's a great asset. Like it's like like this human being is a fucking bond to be traded. Yeah. But like in terms of like a basketball asset, like in terms of how you see like trade value in players, I think the trouble is I don't know what package from any team in the league would actually satisfy the value properly for like Kevin Durant's services.
Yeah.
Like I think every team, when one way or another, would essentially have to trade like their 2 to 3 best players, a few role players, and like 4 or 5 picks.
Unless the market resets, and you know what could reset it is if Durant says I'm not coming back.
Right, and I think, or if it's a similar thing along the lines of the Kyrie threat, in the sense if he either says I'm not re-signing, or either I'm not resigning or I'm not going to play the rest of the season, and then I'm not going to resign.
Right.
You know, so right, he could certainly, and maybe in those ways, push their hand, or by his hand I mean Joseph Tsai's hand. But I think the big problem there is that the Nets I think don't accrue anything close to what they brought in for KD, no matter what trade they make.
It's not going to happen. It's just too much of a dumpster fire. Just wanted to say, guys, I'm sorry about the IMs don't seem to be loading right now. So if you were sending IMs in...
I can IM Kyle.
Yeah.
I'll 1 second, guys. Let me see if we can get that up and running.
No rush. So by next... We'll have a packed OT because we'll be doing our Super Bowl preview. And then we will also be like recapping any of the moves that happened in the NBA ahead of our show because the deadline closes an hour before. So check that out on Thursday for sure. YouTube.com/ESVN show, baby. But hopefully you're watching on here. Let's turn to some NFL news, huh?
Let's do it.
Well, I don't know if you heard, but Tom Brady retired.
What?
Very coincidentally, the same weekend that his movie that he is a producer of, 80 for Brady, came out. Now,
he was after a very important, productive, and emotional conversation with Jane Fonda, Rita Moreno, and Lily Tomlin.
Yeah,
I've decided to call it quits.
Do you think they've ever had a conversation? I can't imagine the Queen Jane Fonda getting along with like that vapid vampire Tom Brady. But I
have to, I guess, probably on set or something, just be like, "Hi, oh, it's so nice to meet you," or like whatever, like.
Yeah.
Probably just like famous people pleasantries. Like
I just have such a high opinion of her and such a low opinion of him as a person. But I will say, with my hate already out of the way, greatest career in the NFL of all time probably will never, ever be duplicated. I mean, and there was a lot of videos and content circulating after his retirement announcement, including just a NFL Films breakdown and intercut of that 28-3 comeback in the Super Bowl against the Falcons. And that was just epic. I mean, there was that incredible Julian Edelman catch as well, where he must have bobbled it 3 or 4 times and caught it against the side of a defender. And for me, that's going to be always the peak of his career because Brady kind of he's had multiple Hall of Fame careers in one, but his play style is very different in every kind of third of his career that you can segment, right? The first period where he won those 3 Super Bowls when they won 3 out of 4 in his first few years in New England, right? When That was the Tuck Rule game, and then they also beat the Eagles during that period in the Super Bowl. He was almost like a different guy. And then he also had that 2007 season with Randy Moss where he was just out of control, so dominant. There was also that other game in 2009. Do you remember that when they were in their all reds? I'm just reminiscing at this point, but they were in their all red like throwback Patriots jerseys, and he scored. It was snowing. He scored like, I'm gonna look this up actually. How many touchdowns did he score in the first quarter?
That might have been like it was like, I think it was 4 or 5. It was like 4 passing touchdowns or something, or 5.
It was like 54-0, 59, 60-0 something over the Tennessee Titans. Okay, here we go. I have it now. 5 touchdowns in the second quarter.
Right, 5 in the second quarter.
They were 52-0 in the third quarter. It's just you can't really say anything. I mean, I'm a hater almost for comedic effect at this point, but what else can be said about that career?
Vince Young was the quarterback of the Tennessee Titans at the time, and he went 0 for 2 completions, 0 yards, and 1 interception.
My God.
Great stat line.
Yeah. Vince Young was a lot of potential, and he just did not seem to care at all about
basically one of the best college
athlete.
Football quarterbacks ever that did not translate into the NFL whatsoever. But yeah, I think if this is actually it, which it does seem to be, he did obviously say this is he basically was like no take backsies on this one.
Yeah.
And it seems as if there are reports that he will start broadcasting on Fox.
I have a theory on that, but
in 2024, which of course this is.
I don't think he's doing it. I think he got it for leverage for something else, and he has that contract as something in his back pocket. But he's not a human being. Like, he doesn't speak truthfully about anything in his life. I don't know how he could honestly call an NFL game.
Yeah, I
know he's a human being, but he's barely.
But I agree though. I also just like I don't see him being particularly engaging or exciting, or not even just excited about calling games or being a color guy or being a halftime guy sitting around the table with, like, Bill Cowher and those guys. Like, I don't necessarily think that, like, that's something he would actually want to be doing. So
worse, he would be in the broadcast booth, and he doesn't even have a particularly pleasing speaking voice.
Yeah, I am pretty skeptical of, like, not even for me as, like, just being. I'm not even trying to be like a hater necessarily on Brady, just like on his own accord. I mean, like, I actually just do not necessarily see him as A, being a particularly engaging TV presence, or B, wanting to do it.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
There's kind of a reason this guy's 45 years old, going to be 46, and is still playing football.
Yeah.
Obviously guys' bodies do deteriorate. And he's kind of had the LeBron thing where time has not caught up to him nearly as fast as some other guys. But, like, Tony Romo wanted to do this. Like, Tony Romo retired and was like, I want to do, like, NFL coverage. Like,
and Greg Olson whose job he would be taking. Yeah.
Right. So and so you're Troy, and obviously I think he's bad at it, but, like, Troy Aikman, like.
Yeah.
And if Tom Brady's like Troy Aikman, that's not great, because Troy Aikman himself is kind of bad at what he does.
Troy Aikman is 400 times more honest than Tom Brady is. I don't need Tom Brady, who I see so much of in my life, in the broadcast booth as well. The guys that are smart and more analytical minds, who are off the cuff and speak with like a refreshing amount of honesty. That's what I want. Also, can we please just get a black player in the booth? It's enough of this. Yeah. Enough of the white quarterback, enough of the white tight end, just enough of the white defensive players. Put someone black in broadcast television calling these games, and not the B team or the C team or the D team. Put them in the broadcast booth for one of the major Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, and I know Booger McFarland's on Monday night, but they've basically downgraded him as well. So enough of this.
I agree, because also the guys that, for the most part, obviously there are exceptions here in the sense of, it's not as if like James Brown or Kurt Menefee, for example, or even Booger were like fantastic NFL players. Were like, superstar NFL players. Actually, I got to double check, but I'm not even sure if Menefee played, but he may have. I just don't recall off the top of my head. But in a lot of other situations, it's superstars, black superstars who are on the halftime beat or the pregame coverage beat. It's Michael Vick, it's Randy Moss, it's Charles Woodson. It's like all-time guys. Like, Greg Olsen is not an all-time guy. I think he's good at what he's doing. But Tony Romo's not an all-time guy. And also, if it's true and Chase Daniel actually gets this contract to be a play caller, Chase Daniel, forgive me, barely played in the league.
Yeah, but the play-by-play guys, that's where they actually need to put black former players in those instances, because what they're trying to do, and the racially coded element of it is create their own inside the NBA kind of like slapstick fun time thing. That's why they're bringing Gronk in.
That's the template, 100%. It's inside the NBA.
And you're not going to be able to replicate it. It's not the same situation. It's not organic. So and that's a lot less money than being Tony Romo or Greg Olsen, and the money that you make as an actual broadcaster, and that is immensely racially segregated right now.
And the thing is, there are options. There truly are, in the sense, and even homegrown on their rosters of broadcasters. I mean, Nate Burleson, former player, New Jersey resident, shout out. He is on the CBS Morning News crew, and he's a former player, and he can certainly do the job of being a play-by-play guy. Ryan Clark, a former player on ESPN, is a fantastic NFL person to cover the NFL, and is a very smart and very quick mind when it comes to reporting on the NFL. And I think he'd be great in the booth. Same thing with Dominique Foxworth, another former player. Great. There are many guys to choose from. If they want a big
fish, get Michael Strahan. You can take him away from Good Morning America. Pay him half that Brady contract, and he'll do it.
And he's charismatic, and he has the charisma and like the knowledge to at least be like an engaging presence. Maybe he isn't like a genius when it comes to necessarily. Because I haven't heard a whole lot of like really substantive NFL coverage with him until like recently.
But they don't want that.
But that's the thing. He is totally. We know it to be true how charismatic and engaging he is as just like a guy on the Today Show or a guy on Good Morning America or whatever. Like, he could totally do it. There's no shortage of options for it. It's just a matter of whether these networks actually want to do it.
The coding is that the black former players are there for comedic relief. They're there maybe for a side comment in the pre-show, but we need to appeal to real America with the guys in the booth. And the reality is that they have a ton of guys that have been in studio working on their craft, understand what it is to be telegenic and to communicate issues around the sport for years at this point. Bradley just listed a few of them. You could chop that Brady contract up in 3 or 4 pieces and pay those guys, audition them to see who's ready for one of the primetime slots for Fox or CBS, the national broadcast, NBC, Monday Night Football, whatever the case may be, and go with that. I just feel like the Brady contract with Fox seems way more like a PR stunt. And if I were a betting woman, and I am, but I don't think there is anything on DraftKings for me to do this with,
Brady
I would bet
features?
that he is not Brady's not going to be in the booth in 2024.
And the other thing I will say, and like this is like when we're also speaking of like representation in the booth, one of the few black guys in the booth is Tony Dungy, who one is a right-wing ideologue, a homophobe, and 2, a shitty broadcaster.
Oh, one of the worst.
Sucks.
So,
like,
I mean,
he's boring. He's disengaged.
Yes.
He doesn't really say anything that innovative or interesting or captivating, and seems like he's having no fun while he's actually watching the game.
Although Mike Tirico's on that staff and actually is very fun and good, but
the issue with Mike Tirico is he doesn't believe that he's black. That's the problem.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Are you aware that he says that he's never, to his knowledge, has never had a black family member, and that he thinks he's Italian?
No.
He's a black man. And he's like, I never had a black family member. I had my genealogy, and I'm ethnically Italian. Yeah, so maybe that's why.
Damn! I love Tirico.
No, he's great at what he does. He's amazing. He's a fantastic broadcaster. He's great for the Olympics, but like he has some stuff to work out.
All right. Well, long story short, Brady, just do anything else. I don't want to hear from you again. Enough. So much exposure. Post more shirtless photos grabbing your crotch online. That's what you're good for these days. Anyway, greatest career of all time. Now, hopefully, we don't ever have to talk about him again.
Yeah, right, and absolutely. I won't add too much, but as a Jets fan, sayonara. But also just as a football fan, like given even regardless of him personally, like I've always had a lot of respect for him as a player. Like you said, he's adapted to a lot of different eras, and he's when you get to that point when you're inevitable, kind of like the Warriors were, like something like that. I think that's a real sort of pinnacle to reach. And as much as you and I both are kind of pro, like, it's not just about rings to like determine your legacy or determine your like winning 7 of those on your own throughout the course of 20 years is a very, very difficult feat. Requires a lot of luck, but you can't be that lucky without being good as well. So
yeah, true.
a great career. He will be the hagiography for him, the sanctifying of him will happen for the rest of our lives. So happy trails, Tom.
I can't wait until I die so I don't have to experience that anymore. With that said, let's just talk about the Sean Payton thing.
Oh yes, let's do it.
We have that clip?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So Sean Payton to the Broncos, and this was a really interesting sequence of events. There were conflicting reports about who the Broncos were zeroing in on. D'Amico Ryans was seemingly a favorite of theirs, but he clearly wanted to take the Houston Texans job as the team that drafted him. I think he met his wife in Houston, so their family wants to go back there, and that was a big part of it. So D'Amico Ryans, I don't think was that seriously considering Denver, but there were people leaking things to the beat reporters trying to create the impression that D'Amico Ryans wanted to go to Denver, and I'm not sure if that was to up Houston's contract offer to ensure that he had 6 years so he wouldn't be yet another one and done coach for them. But regardless of the motivations, that ended up not being the case. And when you hear D'Amico Ryans speak about it, it was clear Houston was where he wanted to go. That left Sean Payton still out there, but the Denver Broncos without a head coach, and they finally pulled the trigger, traded a first-round pick and another pick, and then there was a pick swap later on in the draft for the rights to Sean Payton, have finally agreed on a contract extension / basically new contract, I should say, with the Denver Broncos. And I did not think this was going to happen for a few reasons. All the reports indicated that Sean Payton wanted to be in a warm location, that was his preference. I think he was very, very much looking to the Los Angeles Chargers and getting to work with Justin Herbert. That seemed to have been his first choice, but they stupidly and cheaply hung on to Brandon Staley. So here we are. The Broncos got it done. And I don't think you can see this as anything but a win for the Denver Broncos, especially when you hear Sean Payton outside of his opening presser with Denver being asked about how he'll deal with Russell Wilson's entourage within the facility. And this is just like the kind of clout that Payton brings, and the ability to say no to a guy like Russell Wilson is going to be very good for the future of the Denver Broncos.
On the 32nd.
Coach, Russell Wilson had a personal coach, Jake Hughes, in the building with access who wasn't on the staff.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with that.
How do you feel about players having their own people off the staff in the building, access to the players?
Yeah, that's foreign to me. That's not going to take place here. I mean, I'm unfamiliar with it, but our staff will be here, our players will be here, and that'll be it.
Coach, Sean.
Boom. So that's notable. I mean, a lot of the shenanigans that we saw going down last year with Russell Wilson will hopefully be eliminated. The fact that he had multiple, as was alluded to there, members of his outside team with offices in the facility. I think Russell Wilson had his own office as well. This is the kind of thing that does not fly with the rest of your football team if you're not performing. To my recollection, I'm pretty sure Brady in New England didn't have this kind of treatment.
Well,
the push and pull was with his trainer.
Yeah, with Alex
But he
Guerrero,
wasn't like, I need my videographer, I need my, and hey, Russell Wilson, they appeased a lot of his biggest diva impulses, and they gave him that massive contract extension after giving up multiple first-round picks for him, after trading away players as well, including Noah Fant and Drew Lock. Not that that was overwhelming, but they traded a lot for this guy, signed him to a contract extension before he'd ever played a regular season game, even though the reports coming out of training camp were not very good. We all saw how he performed. It was horrible. It was horrible. But the point is that if anyone can fix Russell Wilson, it's Sean Payton. And it's not just Sean Payton's offense and his ability to work with offensive players and craft game plans and strategy to their strengths. It's also what you saw right there. He's not going to take the bullshit. He has a Super Bowl ring, right? And he honestly, frankly, could have had more if Drew Brees' arm was not so weak at the end of his career. And Drew Brees struggled for a long period of time throwing outdoors. And I always will say that Drew Brees is a little bit overrated because the statistics look so good because of the offense that was set up for him by Sean Payton. Regardless, he's worked with an undersized quarterback before. He's crafted an offense that fit to his strengths. And I could see this working with him and Russell Wilson, even though, my God, working with Russell Wilson sounds tough, but it seems like at the very least, Russ had a bit of a wake-up call and knows that he needs some help in how to play quarterback, and Sean Payton's the guy to do it.
Well, I also, I agree. I think if the Broncos were going to give up some draft capital to do this, I think there are a few coaches that would be worth it in a hypothetical situation to do so for, and I think Payton is one of them given their current roster construction. And especially with a guy like Russell Wilson who is, as you were saying, been completely accustomed to being accommodated in every request he might have because he is like the top of the food chain on the team that he's on. That wasn't the case this year. He was arguably one of the worst players on the Broncos this year.
Yeah.
And so that performance-based, clout does not follow when the performance is no longer there.
Yeah.
So the person who has the clout actually is going to be the Super Bowl champion, who has basically been a top-tier head coach or a top-tier coach, period, everywhere he's been, regardless of who he has been working with. So the person that's going to have the control there is Sean Payton, not Russell Wilson.
Right.
And I also think the ownership structure and the CEO of the Broncos will also relay that message, that the person in charge is not Russell Wilson, it is Sean Payton. And I think that is extremely important because Payton is going to be the one tasked with reorganizing this team to make it function and to maximize the strengths and opportunities and of the players on this team while also minimizing their limitations, which is something that Nathaniel Hackett was constitutionally incapable of doing.
And not to say anything of the other Payton, the general manager of the Denver Broncos, who George Payton, still I would say a lame duck general manager. This does not bode well for him, in my opinion, because Sean Payton is just going to take over the entire football operation.
Well, because George Payton, not to be confused with Sean Payton, George's Payton does not have a Y in it.
This is like Ryan Pace and Ryan Coles all over again.
Yeah, the Broncos are only going to hire Paytons now.
Yeah.
And Peyton Manning, God. George Payton's two largest free agent or largest moves as the general manager of the Broncos were signing Russell Wilson, or
trading for
facilitating the Russell Wilson trade, and hiring Nathaniel Hackett. And so two, I would say, we could confidently say, so far, obviously the jury's still out on what will happen with Wilson now that Payton's a head coach, but so far, two calamitous failures for a new ownership group to shoulder with their GM that was grandfathered in. They didn't even hire George Payton. So I can totally agree with you in the sense that it could be that Payton is on borrowed time because of all of that, but I guess maybe he's sucked up enough to Greg Penner, the CEO of the team, and seemingly in Penner's statement a few months ago when they actually fired Hackett, they made it pretty clear that the new coach, whoever it might be, wouldn't report to George Payton. They'd report to Greg Penner.
Yeah.
So basically, I think what that is implying is the Waltons and me, we're actually the bosses.
Yeah.
Payton is a figurehead.
Exactly.
And that's how we are going to structure the team thereafter. So especially now knowing that with Payton in the fold, I think it also becomes even more clear that that is going to be the center of power, not Russell Wilson or even George Payton in terms of making front office making free agency acquisitions or trades, offensive scheme, whatever the case may be. So I don't think it's a hostile takeover, but I think it's what will be needed to give this team a much needed jolt out of the mediocrity that they did not expect to be in.
Right. I agree. I do think that they went so hard for Russell Wilson. They were so aggressive in their pursuit of him in the trade. And I should say they clearly wanted Aaron Rodgers first, but I mean the trade assets that they gave up constituted an aggressive pursuit. They're stuck with him as much as they might want to redo that and change history. They have to get somebody who's going to maximize Russell Wilson because he's their largest asset. And this is not an asset that they can cut ties with. Like, they are stuck with him for at least the next 2 to 3 years. And so what they need is somebody who's going to make sure that he performs to the best of his abilities. And there's nobody who's going to be better at that than Sean Payton, in my opinion. It seems like they were a little reticent to give up draft capital for a head coach, which I can understand. But and so that's why they were pursuing Jim Harbaugh as well. But I don't really think it's close in between Harbaugh and Sean Payton. I would rather have Sean Payton any day of the week, and a late first round pick from the San Francisco 49ers seems totally sufficient for compensation.
Obviously, there is still time for this to change, but I do think it is interesting that after it seemed as if both Payton and Harbaugh were out of the fold for head coaching consideration, that the one guy who actually required pick compensation to hire got a job, and the other guy ultimately didn't.
Yeah, I don't think they wanted to. I mean, and I would imagine George Payton, general manager, doesn't want to let go of that first round pick. But too bad, ownership superseded him. Go after Sean Payton, and they have the pockets to pay Sean Payton.
Absolutely.
So interesting stuff. Let's just touch on some other hires. Right now, the Carolina Panthers, I am high on them and some of the moves that they're making.
Yeah, great. They had great, seemingly so far a good, encouraging offseason in terms of coaching considerations. I mean, obviously, of course, we discussed the Steve Wilkes situation and all of the considerations and ramifications of that. But just from a purely football perspective, I don't think that Frank Reich is at all. I think Frank Reich was a good hire, a smart hire. If they were going to move on from Steve Wilkes, I think Reich's ouster and departure from Indianapolis is more a reflection of the dysfunction of the Colts and not Reich's inability as a coach.
Yeah,
I think he dealt with a severe amount of flux as a head coach with Indianapolis, cycling through quarterback after quarterback after quarterback. So I think ideally maybe if they can find some more stability at quarterback and don't participate in the quarterback carousel methods of Matt Rule, that Reich will have some more success there. And then hiring Ejiro Evero, the former Broncos defensive coordinator,
who did a bang-up job this whole year.
With the difficult, position of being put in of basically having the only really plus unit on the team.
Right.
Helming a really fantastic defense with kind of little to no support from their offense. And
yeah.
For Evero to then go and be on now the defensive coordinator for a team with a lot of young, exciting players who maybe I just don't think had a whole lot of chances to kind of gel and coalesce together. I think he could be the guy to do it. I mean, we've been talking about this a few times over the last few weeks. In terms of the pieces on this team, we both, I think, really like Derek Brown.
Yes.
Frankie Louvu is a guy who kind of stood out this year at safety.
Brian
Burns, another guy I think we both really like. J.C. Horn, returning from injury and being one of their better cornerbacks. Jeremy Chin is an interesting player in their linebacking core as well. I think this is a team that Evero could really. I mean, this is a unit that Evero could really.
Safety, but yes.
Safeties. Yeah, Evero could really put it. Make his mark on, and so I think both hires are really complementary of one another.
Yeah, it's a huge get for the Carolina Panthers to have Frank Reich, who's an experienced, known quantity out on the offensive side of the ball, a veteran coach that can put his stamp on the team, and then also getting the defensive coordinator that outside of DeMeco Ryans probably had the best season of any defensive coordinator in the league this year. Well, Lou Anarumo, maybe I'd put him ahead. Wink Martindale also had a very good season, but
interestingly enough, it seems as if Anarumo, who had previously not fetched any head coaching interviews, is now, I think, being pretty seriously considered by the Arizona Cardinals. And so
is Mike Kafka.
And so is Mike Kafka. Right, I was going to say, so speaking of Wink as well, is that Mike Kafka, I think, is a contender for that job. And I don't remember, I don't know if you saw this. I think Wink is a candidate. I don't remember.
Colts.
It's for the Colts, right? So
but
not
who knows
the Cardinals
how real
as well.
that is, right? I mean,
because seemingly they've interviewed 25 people.
Yeah,
and want to do 3 rounds of interviews because I think Irsay is just like on a bender probably.
Yeah, he's just like, how long can we stall before we get crushed on social media for announcing Jeff Saturday?
Hey Chris, what if we do three rounds instead of 2? What if we did that?
Yeah. That will be fascinating if he ends up hiring Jeff Saturday. NFL media will rightly explode, as they should. It'd be outrageous.
I mean, it's if we consider these things on, all things being equal, if Jeff Saturday was like, for example, even if Jeff Saturday was someone like kind of sort of inauspicious or pedestrian, someone like, I don't know, like not even Brandon Staley, but someone like Brandon Staley, just like a a coach, like a regular NFL head coach, and he had that performance after like a coaching change, they wouldn't keep that guy.
No,
they'd be, this guy actually, okay, we learned something. This guy sucks at coaching. He can't manage the clock. He doesn't know how to win games. He loses to bad teams. Like, he won 1 game.
Yeah.
Since we hired him, like there would be no question. But because he's a Ring of Honor member in the Colts, like he gets a little bit more patience.
And buddies with the owner.
Right.
That's
he gets a little bit more patience when it comes to
a Christian.
Yeah. So you can't.
Anyway,
Jesus saves, folks.
All right. Well, with that said, we're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna bring in Jason Myles of This Is Revolution, who I was hanging out with a few weekends ago. Wanted to come on the show. Wanted to have him on the show to talk some football. He's got some hot takes and more sports stuff. See you guys in just a second. are back, and we are joined by my buddy here, Jason Myles of This Is Revolution. You guys should definitely check out that show. What was that?
That was applause.
I mean, honestly, it's deserving of it. You guys should check it. He's at Jason at J_Myles MYLES_TIR. This is Revolution on Twitter, and you can check out all his work there. Plus, got a Substack, right, Jason?
Well, no, I actually write for Sublation magazine. I'm a columnist for Sublation.
Oh, okay. All right.
So,
well, I
yeah,
got that wrong.
it's even better. Ben Burgess, my neighbor, has a Substack. So
oh, yeah?
Should be a Substack member of Ben Burgess's Substack, where he writes about philosophy.
Okay. Well, plug your recent piece for...
I wrote a piece in Sublation that's getting a lot of attention, and some people definitely have some responses that they've been saying. And it's called Is the Contemporary Left a Lifestyle Brand?
All right. That soundboard is just incredible.
I'll stop.
No, I want you to keep it up. Because like Sam's soundboard is right over there, right out of my reach, and I wish I could use it all the time. But we just did a live show with you guys, with Ben, had a grand old time. Wanted to touch base with you because we were chatting about football, debating back and forth.
Yes.
How are you feeling about the Sean Payton hire for your Denver Broncos?
So I too do a sports show on This Is Revolution.
Whoa.
And we don't get to do it as much, and because there's so much stuff, right? That I have to do. But I was talking to my sports show co-host Mac, and I asked him his opinion, and he said, "Man, that sure is a lot to give up for Payton, but I feel like Payton can get Russell Wilson right." And the way I felt about Russell Wilson when the trade first happened to get him, I was like, "Oh, this is cool." And I never thought I'd see a black quarterback in Denver.
Yeah.
There's a few places I didn't think I'd see a black quarterback.
Right.
San Francisco and Denver.
Snow is white in Denver. Quarterbacks are white in Denver.
Oh, Lily. And
I mean, yeah.
So I was like, okay, this is going to be good. And then, it was a nightmare of a season. The defense was amazing, even losing players kind of throughout the season. Randy Gregory got lost in like week 3 or 4. But to
Bradley Chubb
together,
traded to the Dolphins.
I was okay with the Chubb trade because I don't think Chubb was Von Miller too.
Yeah.
Chubb is a great addition to a Von Miller type pass rusher, but I didn't think he could take over a game like Von Miller did. Von Miller is a Super Bowl MVP caliber player. I know Aaron Donald got the MVP the other year when the Rams won, but he can't get that MVP without.
No, that was Cooper Kupp. It should have been. It should have been Aaron Donald or Von Miller. I mean, Cooper Kupp getting it was just. And honestly, it should have been Odell, but he tore his ACL like in the second quarter. But he had that touchdown catch, and that was all she wrote. He looked like he was going to tear them up the whole game. And as an Odell truther, Odell fan, that broke my heart.
Odell truther.
I truly am. I mean,
I was heartbroken for that young man when that happened, because he had some really interesting seasons in New York, considering what he was playing with at that time. And then, it felt like his career was just kind of going to go off the rails and be a forgotten guy, like someone like Freddie Mitchell but for him to be able to come back with that Rams team, kind of show out for a little bit in that Super Bowl, I was like, oh man, I wish he could come back. And I was sad he didn't come back to the Rams, but I've never seen a team blow up like that after a Super Bowl victory.
Never. It's historic, and there needs to be some sort of like obituary about that Rams team. But I mean, what is it like as a Denver Broncos fan living through that kind of season? That was a nightmare season. Season.
Sis, I've been a Broncos fan since I was 9 years old. So that's why I love John Elway. Moving to Mexico and seeing Broncos stuff made me know this is home. And I'm from Oakland. Remember, I'm from Oakland. I am from Oakland. I was born in the Bay Area. Raiders, Niners stuff everywhere. But the season I wasn't too heartbroken over it, to be honest with you, because I'm always looking for bright spots. And my whole thing was trading Chubb, getting a 1 back. I thought maybe we would have an opportunity to get a quarterback in the draft. I think there's some guy. I know you don't watch that much college football, but I'm kind of in love with Michael Penix Jr. from Washington. He was in Indiana for a few years, and he transferred to Washington and just lit college football up. And even people that thought he was going to be maybe a 3rd or 4th rounder, like, I think he might sneak in the bottom of the 1st or the 2nd round and be a legitimate starter, a la a Derek Carr type quarterback, where maybe you don't feel for whatever reason he's 1st round talent. He can stick around to the 2nd round and you kind of get this steal. But the reclamation project is Russell Wilson, what the team will be giving up for the next 2 or 3 more years.
Yeah.
You're going to be in salary cap hell if you're going to try to build through free agency. I think they've done a good job as a team building through free agency in the sense of signing rookies after the 7th round.
Right.
They always starter on that team since, I think the last 10 years, they have a legitimate starter that is an undrafted rookie. So I have hope that they can build through that with a Sean Payton-led offense. There's definitely weapons on the outside. Russell Wilson is about the same size as Drew Brees. And I think at this point in his career, he's probably wants to be a little bit more Drew Brees.
Yeah.
The running guy.
He looks like he's put on like 20 pounds over the past few years. Like I understand the desire to get thicker to withstand some hits. He probably needs to do that to make his career last longer. But what he miscalculated with was his capacity to run an offense. He thought he was Patrick Mahomes, and he's just not, right? He was trying to go out there without a damn wristband and call the plays off the top of his head. That's why they kept getting false starts or delays of games and things like that, because he was not organized. His ego was getting in the way. But the good news is that one of the only people that could have come in right away and checked his ego is Sean Payton, because he's got the clout to do it. And he has the offensive mind that Russell Wilson's going to maybe respect a little bit more. Tell him some hard truths.
We hope.
Yeah.
We hope. We'll see. And I also think, we were talking about this on the show, and I would love to get you and Bradley's opinion on this. Super Bowl media week. And for years, this is the week that people usually say stuff. And I feel like there's a lot of made up narratives in sports media about players, because in 2023, there's no player that's going to say anything that's going to damage his brand, because we are in the era of branding.
Right.
And especially with these younger guys like Hurts and Mahomes, they're 2nd generation. Their dads are either coaches or ex-pros in most sports. I mean, look at the Warriors starting 5. Those are all, or last year, I think, I don't know about this year. Those guys were like, their dads played in the league. There's tons of guys in the NFL where their dads, if they didn't play in the league, they played D1 college ball.
Yeah. I mean, Steph Curry's like the ultimate NBA kind of 2nd generation guy.
Oh, and the other light-skinned dude, I can't think of his name right now.
Jordan Poole?
No, on the Warriors.
Klay Thompson.
Klay Thompson. Yeah, his dad played for the Lakers for
years. Right. Yeah.
Showtime Lakers. And then you have Gary Payton Jr.
Yeah.
It's the Nepo Baby All-Stars.
Yeah.
So
Pat Surtain on the Broncos also, but that's part of, I mean, maybe we talked about this. I can't remember if I've talked about it with you off air or whatever, but it was off air. Yeah. The access to training that some of these kids have, the access to just elite sports, it's just capitalism. It's what money can buy you, but it's becoming a little bit, I don't know. What I do love about sports is its capacity for these players, through their sheer talent, to get money at their apex from these billionaires. And now when these kids are coming from legacy sports families, it's a bit of a different dynamic.
You're creating a class of athlete, and much like Europe. And I think the European model is what we're seeing, especially in college football, with the consolidation of leagues. So you know, when you think about, you know, kind of to the Russell Wilson point, though I know there's a lot of controversy, but the teammates don't like him. That's all made up. He had a birthday party and half the people showed up. Like that's
half.
That's like how a lot of these things are.
Oh, come on, Jason. He's a cornball. I mean, like
but here's the problem. Here's the problem with that.
Tom Brady's teammates don't like him either. So, but you just have to be winning.
But Tom Brady wouldn't host the birthday party to begin with.
Yeah,
and he wouldn't leak to the media. Oh, only half the players came. Sierra, keep a tally.
Yeah,
keep a tally.
Take attendance with who comes.
I agree that Tom Brady probably wouldn't have had a big party like that.
No.
I people don't like Russell Wilson because he's corny. I kind of don't care. I think that a lot of these guys are probably a little more corny than we. I think Patrick Mahomes is equally as corny. I think Jalen Hurts is equally as corny. Gone are the days.
Jalen Hurts is cool. Jalen Hurts is not corny.
Sure.
I'm a Giants fan. All right. Well, if I think he's cool, come on. He's cool.
I think, look, there's no more AIs. There's no more Mike Vicks. Those days are gone.
Yeah.
By the time that kid is old enough to pick up a ball and people see talent in him or her, you're going to a private school and you're going to be inundated with that life.
I mean, the Lamar Jackson's the closest we have to that kind of athlete right now, and he's in the middle.
Again, what has he ever said wrong?
Yeah. Yeah.
These guys understand branding. So all the stories that we get are stories that we make up in the pundit sphere because they're never going to give us what we got with practice. We talking about practice.
It's also just like the Instagram age too, which compounds it, where you can do your own marketing and your own podcast you can have. I mean, Brady has his own podcast. The Kelsey brothers have their own podcast. I mean, who listens to that garbage? It's just them saying, it's just an extended PR exercise.
And it's working. And now you're seeing it with high school kids. I don't know if you've been following NIL stuff with these young kids coming out. LA is just a great feeder for all this. Was Bryce Young is an LA kid, and there's another guy that's got like a pretty good marketing campaign.
I don't know if CJ Stroud isn't. Well, he's from California, but I know he's
from LA as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's good. He's good.
He's from Rancho Cucamonga, so sort of outside.
Yeah, I knew he was from California, but he's like I think he should go be the first quarterback in the draft, but that's a whole different
really
story.
over is the kid from SC coming out, Caleb Williams?
No, not till next year. I mean, he's lock him in now for first overall already. I swear to God, I've never seen a college quarterback, I guess since Andrew Luck, where I'm like, this guy's going to be a pro and he's going to be really successful, and there's no doubt. There's no doubt.
I agree wholeheartedly. I saw him in Oklahoma when he came in for what's his name? I can't think of the kid's name in Oklahoma. That was kind of ineffective and ended up transferring out. And watching him at SC has just been, even when they lost that bowl game, that was one of the most exciting bowl games I'm seeing at SC since the 2006 championship.
You mean the one? What was the Cotton Bowl to Tulane this year? Yeah. That was
a hell of a
USC
game.
just didn't play defense, but
Lincoln Riley, right?
Yeah,
that's kind of his MO. But I haven't seen a quarterback, to your point. I haven't seen a quarterback that good. I never trust Ohio State quarterbacks.
Yeah, that is. Well, look, I was really high on Dwayne Haskins, and that was wrong. Rest in peace.
Oh, rest in peace.
But
I wanted that. I was hoping so bad he could have a comeback, and then sadly, young man died.
I wanted him on the Giants instead of Daniel Jones, and so I was like outraged, and Daniel Jones ended up being probably the right
Daniel
pick.
Jones, but
they're racist. The Giants are fucking racist. They're never gonna take a black quarterback ever. I mean, talk about lily white quarterbacks. Maybe the New York Giants are at the forefront of that.
Duke, you come from Duke. Duke actually had some surprisingly decent black quarterbacks in the last few years, but
yeah.
Giving a quarterback a chance to mature, back in my day, And I was looking at this thing, and I wanted to bring this up to you guys because I know you and Bradley are around the same age. Tom Brady retiring is this end to this era that I remember those guys in college. I watched Peyton Manning at Tennessee, right? I watched Eli at Ole Miss. I watched Tom Brady at Michigan. And I grew up with that 80s wave of Elway and Marino and Steve Young. And I'm really excited about this new crop that's coming in. And I'm happy to see what New York did, because when that second wave came in, those guys got some success relatively quickly. Ben Roethlisberger got really quick success. Brady didn't really get his roses, as you young people say, until kind of the midpoint in his career, because everyone said it's a system, it's Belichick, it's this, it's that. And name me one Hall of Fame wide receiver he played with other than Randy Moss. Yeah. So you know, I like the fact that the Giants let dude mature. Because when I was watching football, I was like, well, he needs at least 5 years before we know if he's trash or not. And Marino is an aberration, you know, throwing for 5,000 yards your second year and breaking every passing record known to man. Like, we're never going to see that again. And we haven't seen somebody come in their second year and just obliterate everything. Because
Mahomes did. Mahomes almost broke the passing record in his second year, though, because he was
it his second year?
Yeah, he redshirted that first year, and then it was like, I mean, theoretical redshirt. But Alex Smith was still around. Then they traded him to Washington, and then he came in that year, and that was when everything changed. Like, the league changed. It was Tyreek Hill. No one could stop him. The only reason they didn't go to the Super Bowl that year was because Tom Brady beat him in overtime that year. Right, in Gillette Stadium. God damn it.
They're you know, the Chiefs are a team I love to hate. I'm a AFC West watcher as a Bronco fan, and I really hate the Chiefs, and I hope that the Philadelphia Eagles and their horrible fans defeat the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
God, we're on the opposite side here. But let me ask you this, actually, because you're kind of, it is almost beautiful how there are these like eras of quarterbacks. Like, really, Brady was the last of that. Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, Brady, and Drew Brees you can include, right? We're in this new era where, and it's also, I heard Rich Eisen make this point, and I think it's a really good one, about how for so many years it was one of these guys are going to be in the mix competing for a Super Bowl. Brady, Peyton Manning, Big Ben. And then there were, like, you know, on the outside, like Phillip Rivers and in the AFC. We're kind of seeing the same thing now. It's always going to be Mahomes, Allen, Joe Burrow, and then maybe on the same damn team that Phillip Rivers was on, Justin Herbert will be sniffing around there.
Justin Herbert right now is suffering from Phillip Rivers disease, which is
the Chargers.
You play for the Chargers, which kind of has a gauntlet in the AFC West that they have to go through depending on what powerhouse teams you're playing against. And the Chargers never really have that stellar defense that can push them over the hump. I really like watching Herbert play. Lamar Jackson is fun to watch. I thought Andrew Luck and RG3 were going to be in playoffs and Super Bowls until the end of time. And sadly, both those guys suffered injuries and walked away from the game with their mental faculties. But I feel like we missed out on the potential of some amazing football with them. But I'm loving what I'm seeing with Mahomes and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. And I'm so glad Philly didn't listen to the hate with Jalen Hurts.
I was like, can he pass at an elite level? And his deep ball numbers, and I'm not numbers person for the most part. I'm like, eye test. I still don't think he'll ever be an elite passer. But if you have the deep ball threat, like, you don't need to have the strongest arm if you are that accurate with a deep ball. And he has a stronger arm than a lot of, I think, than he had when he came into the league. He's changed. He's become a way better passer. Hurts has more accurate.
I watched some of him in that first few years, and you know, if you watch Jalen Hurts in his years with Alabama, He wasn't very good.
No.
And I remember that benching, and it was like, yeah, of course you got benched. and then you watch him in Oklahoma just light it up. And a lot of it has to do with system, but you still have to have a level of smarts. And I think the addition of A.J. Brown in Philadelphia is massive.
Yeah.
For his success. If you look at what the adjustment that like the Jaguars were able to do when the Chargers were jumping routes, when it was like, hey, double move, pump fake, run to green grass. You're going to have green grass because they're jumping the routes. You don't have to have the strongest arm to do that when people are jumping your mid-level routes. I mean, Drew Brees was never known for his strong arm. As a matter of fact, that's why the Chargers were so quick to get rid of him, because he lost arm strength after that horrible shoulder injury.
I just was talking about him, how, I do think that I think he's a little overrated in the pantheon of greats, because I think Sean Payton was that good.
You still have to have a person that comes in and runs the plays properly, right?
Yeah.
We always have to remember, if we go, well, this coach is that great. It's like, all right, well, how great was Don Shula? I knew a guy that played towards the end of Shula's career with Marino and came in around Jimmy Johnson's time. And Shula, by the time Marino got there, just didn't care and was a little out of it. And Marino got to run that entire team for the most part, definitely the offense. That's why he threw for so much. And he hated Jimmy Johnson.
I mean, Dungy's I don't think a very good coach, but won a Super Bowl because Peyton Manning was just that elite at that time.
Peyton Manning is that, and that's another guy that the last 4 years of his career with the Denver Broncos, where he puts up those kind of all universe numbers, his arm strength is a fraction of what it was when he comes into the league, but it's pinpoint precision. It's smart route running. It's understanding that we have to design our playbook around this guy's strengths. I think there was a good coaching core around him at that time. And the last season he's there, when his arm is just totally a noodle, the Broncos defense is one for the record.
That was rough. He was probably the worst starting quarterback in the NFL that year, because it was just, that was hard to watch, but he just didn't. I mean, and that was the year that they put, what's his name? The guy that got that terrible contract from the Texans. Osweiler. They put him in, and Peyton was hurt, but not really, and then they put him back in for the playoffs. Yeah.
But Peyton Manning, a friend of mine pointed something out about Peyton Manning in those years, even those bad years, that was so important. And these are the things that we have to remember when we talk about elite. The ability to audible out of a play that's going to lose yards and gain 2 or 3. Yeah. That's a huge difference maker when you play a game of inches.
That's why he is Joe Burrow. That's the comp to me. All right, and now to shoehorn my previous connection about, we're in this big 3 era again in the AFC. It was Brady, it was Peyton, it was and Big Ben. But I think the best comparison really of those 3 to the other one is that Joe Burrow plays like Peyton Manning. It's smart decisions, even those quick groundings right at the line of scrimmage that you were seeing when the protection was breaking down. It's like, okay, it's second, it's going to be 2nd and 10 or whatever, or I'm just going to live to see another day. And like Peyton Manning, Joe Burrow, despite having better athleticism now, but that's every quarterback, right? So you have to adjust for that for the most part, having better athleticism than those other guys. But he can pick apart a zone. Unlike, I mean, he just is too smart for
and he
defenses.
has very smart receivers. This is a team sport, so let's also throw in the fact that you're only going to be as smart as your receivers. So when your receivers know where to sit and they're having that conversation on the sideline, okay, they're playing zone, we can beat it with this. I'm going to sit down in this part of the coverage. I see green grass, pump and break, and I'll hit it because they're sitting down here and they're only running a cover this. The Jamar Chase, I love watching these guys play. He's got a bunch of great receivers on that team. He's got backs that can catch out of the backfield.
Yeah.
The Bengals are fun. The Bengals haven't been this fun to watch since the late 80s in the Boomer Esiason.
But it's already better than that. Burrow's already broken every starting quarterback's record for playoff wins for the Bengals. Already. Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have that many. I mean, they went to a Super Bowl with Ken Anderson. And if you go back and look at Ken Anderson's numbers in that era of run first, Anderson put up 4,000-yard seasons playing in that Bill Walsh offense that's left over from when he's a coordinator. So it is fun to watch these newer, more mobile quarterbacks, extremely smart receivers, and also because you can't have that strong safety playing a hybrid middle linebacker position anymore. You have really smart secondary as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like the ultimate chess game, I feel like, that we're watching here with modern football. And sadly, I don't know if it gets appreciated because there needs to be the emotional component to news for people to engage. So where I see a lot of people breaking down film on YouTube, I don't see that same level of film breakdown and appreciation for the chess match that we're seeing when I'm driving in my car back to the Bay Area to see my kids and listening to sports radio. It's just people trying to find the drama stories, which kind of makes me sad.
Yeah, I mean, and I look, I even fall into it too, where the quarterback centric discussion is exhausting to me. But it's easy because it's like those are the headlines. But at the same time, it really I think downplays the way that football is the ultimate team sport. There's so many layers of intelligence and adjustment from every position group, from coordinators, from in-game adjustments to anticipating how your opponent's going to be anticipating you, and then having like 3 or 4 different layers of how plays are going to be designed and called based on that. And I think like the misconception is just that the NFL is for meatheads, when in fact, in terms of layers of strategy and game planning, I think it's unmatched with any other sport.
So I watch football here in Spanish, right? So I have no idea what they're saying. I'm getting better, but when you have to watch the game without the talk, you can actually see the motions and understand the matchups. And I remember I was watching a Bronco game. I couldn't remember which one it was, but I know the matchup they wanted was Jerry Jeudy on a linebacker. They got it. The linebacker ended up being able to cover Jerry Jeudy, who's extremely fast, and it was actually put right where Jeudy could get it, but he just didn't catch it. And I was like, well, this is great because now we can see the coaching worked because they got the matchup they wanted. They wanted Jeudy on a backer. The throw was there. Jeudy didn't catch it, right? And watching the game like that, it's a little different. You really appreciate stuff like that, because then you appreciate teams like the Niners, who I think I told you before Purdy got his injury in that game, I was like, they have the cheat code right now with Debo and McCaffrey, and this Purdy kid doesn't have to do that much to make things happen, and that defense is frightening. And there were plays where teams were getting the matchup. Who did the Niners beat before they played the Eagles? I can't remember.
The Cowboys.
Where CeeDee Lamb on Fred Warner, but Fred Warner surprisingly
did you see that when he dropped back into coverage and he was able to keep up? That might have been Gallup, actually. I don't even remember, but
I thought it was CeeDee Lamb.
It was CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
Either way, both of those guys are really fast. It's Fred Warner is the best middle linebacker in football, but
I haven't seen coverage like that in a long time. But also, too, we have to talk about speed for wide receivers, and this is a conversation you don't get to hear with the drama punditry, which is just because a guy runs a 4.2 40 doesn't mean you have 4.2 football speed. If you're coming off a break, can you think fast enough with that speed to see the coverage and know what the adjustment is and still run as fast? That's why Tyreek Hill, in my opinion, is an amazingly elite receiver, because he has this blinding speed and amazing route running ability and defensive recognition.
And
go
what
ahead.
he does to it's also like what he does to a defense when he's not catching the ball.
Yeah.
Like that's what also makes him elite compared to other guys who might be better at route running, like a Devontae Adams, but don't have the speed and athletic ability of a guy like Tyreek Hill, which is that he draws the coverage down so deep that it makes it so much easier to get shorter incompletions and pick you apart that way because he draws the safety back.
I mean, what did Jerry Rice run in his 40? I think it was like a 4.6.
Yeah. Yeah, I
You
mean,
know?
I have to look it up.
If you remember him in football,
4.7.
wow. Okay, so he was always breaking free. He had crazy football speed. So to be able to see, like, look, I don't care about your 40 time. I care about your football speed. Can you accelerate at certain points?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we miss that sometimes in our analysis of the game. And what we're seeing again with some of these young receivers, they understand that they're literally training for that at the high school level. So these kids have crazy start stop and can accelerate. Oh, it's a beautiful thing to watch. So again, I am back to the original question. I am kind of excited for Sean Payton if he gets the pieces he needs. I remember when the Saints went to the Super Bowl, the championship game, when they had Reggie Bush, and Reggie Bush was a great difference maker because you had to account for him. So he's going to take coverage off the top, and a lot of those touchdowns that breezed through in those years, it wasn't 80-yard bombs downfield. It was, well, Bush brought coverage, linebackers over. He brought safeties over. So you had wide receivers, tight ends over the top. And I remember Breeze was like, I'll take less money if we re-sign Reggie Bush, if you remember that, because he understood the asset that Bush was.
So underrated, and what was done to him by college football is a fucking travesty. But before I let you go, let's just talk about the Super Bowl a little bit more in this matchup. Like, what's your prediction?
I can tell you what I want. I
know what you want. It's the
Eagles.
opposite. We are in conflict.
Oh, do you?
Yes.
I think the Chiefs are going to win because I didn't see the Eagles do enough offensively against a Niners defense. The Niners defense is pretty good, and I don't know if the Chiefs defense is anywhere near. I don't know. Should I say it? I don't think the Chiefs defense is anywhere near as elite. I think they get their numbers from the fact that people play tight against that offense. We'll see if experience wins out. Can the Eagles do it again with a big upset like they did? How many years ago was that? 6?
Gotta be 6. Yeah, right. The Eagles Patriots Super Bowl with Philly.
7 years ago.
No, that might.
It was 2017. January 2017.
Wow,
yeah.
time is flying.
Okay, so 6 years ago, I remember that Super Bowl vividly, and I remember just being like, "Wow, didn't see this coming." So the Eagles have to kind of do one of those. Don't see it coming. I think their defense is good enough to give Mahomes the business, a la Tampa a few years back. We'll see if Andy Reid has something.
Yeah.
For that Philly defense.
Revenge on Philly, Andy Reid Bowl. Does he have it in him?
Yeah. Andy Reid, in my opinion, didn't lose that Super Bowl against the Patriots.
Oh. No. I mean,
Donovan McNabb, barfing. Terrell Owens playing on one leg, balling out. I feel the pain of Jersey and Delaware and Philadelphia for that loss. That would have been a game changer for football had Philadelphia won that Super Bowl, and they were very, very close. I don't think this game is going to be that close. I predict a 24-17 Chiefs win.
Okay, so you're going under then too, I would imagine. I don't know what the over-under is. I guess it's
I don't think
50.
it's going to be a big scoring game.
Well, I'm concerned about Jalen Hurts' shoulder, which still does not seem like it's back.
So far, the over-under is 51.
Interesting. So you're taking that under then, Jason, in
Yes.
theory.
Yeah.
I got to think about it more.
Eagles still up. It's a -1.5 for the Eagles right now.
The Eagles are the more complete team, but
If they control the well, this is the thing about the Chiefs. The Chiefs have this kid. Is it Camacho?
Isaiah Pacheco is I think what
Pacheco,
you're
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, been in Mexico too long.
That's all good.
Everybody's Camacho. He's a beast.
Oh yeah.
And he's used so strategically to be a game killer for the other team that if he has a bigger chunk of the offense as kind of a surprise, I think they can control the clock. I think it's going to be whoever controls the clock.
He has been a bit of a revelation in the run game. They're still just like wildly impatient with the run, but it's easy to see why they get like that when they have Mahomes behind center. It's just I think the Eagles are the better overall team, but I think that Jalen Hurts' shoulder is even less healthy than being advertised. He threw for under 200 yards in both of those playoff games. I know they got up to big leads, but if the Chiefs defense can make them a little more simple and expose that, then it's Mahomes time. And Mahomes is great at evading the pass rush. The Eagles have a great one, but I think with a little bit more health on that ankle, I'm still going with the Chiefs as of now, but I got to think about it more as well because this is the two best teams from each conference got to the dance this year, and that's what I think is fun.
I would have rather seen the Bills.
I don't think the Bills are as on the level of the Bengals or the Chiefs, frankly. They've been overrated with their talent.
Oof.
You want to go? We can go through it. We can go through it on the look. Maybe with Von Miller they had a chance. They don't have any difference makers on that defensive line that are that scary. And Stephon Diggs is it. Then Gabe Davis is their number 2. I would take any number 2 on the Bengals. I would take T. Higgins, and I would take probably like a few receivers on the Chiefs before I would take.
I feel what
Gabe
you're
Davis.
saying, but Gabe Davis in that playoff game, was it a year ago, showed his ass.
I know, but yeah, it's just flash in the pan thing for me. I feel like.
Oh, well, look, I would have liked to have seen the Bills, but they're not there. Unfortunately, the Chiefs are. I think the Chiefs are the better team. It would be really not. I don't think a shoulder is going to be a problem for Jalen Hurts. It's can the Eagles get the run game going, and can the Eagles play patiently on defense and take away Mahomes' playmaking ability, much like Tampa Bay did, where it's like, look, we're going to make you spin around. You do the same spin around, and you're going to throw back. And if we can stay where we're supposed to be, we're going to get a ton of picks.
Yeah. I mean, and similarly to that scenario, Mahomes was banged up in that game too. That Super Bowl that he lost against Tampa. So anyway, Jason Myles, my buddy. It was so fun to have you on. We got to have you on again soon. And check out This is Revolution. Amazing show. Hopefully we can do something on your end sometime soon.
I got to come back to New York.
You do?
Do another function in the next few months. So
all right, let's hang out then.
Hang out.
All
Peace,
right,
guys.
sounds good. All right, appreciate it. All right, well, with that, here we are. There's Bradley once again. Say hello.
Hi. Hello.
You tired?
I'm weary.
Yeah, we should say we'll probably just wrap here because Bradley has been doing 2 jobs this week since Matt has been out.
And it's been quite the day at the office here.
Yeah, lots of technical glitches. But with that, we are just going to read some of the IMs that came through because unfortunately they didn't start coming through until very recently. We just had to refresh. And then we will get out of here. Thank you again to Jason, who is always excellent. And
also check out I'll plug this as well. What he mentioned earlier. Definitely check out his work at Sublation Magazine. Very very good stuff. Yeah.
Dan from Columbus, I enjoyed the football speed versus 40 times conversation. I personally think it's a low value attribute compared to your 10 to 20 yard throw. I don't know if it's the norm, but baseball used to always do 60 yards. Super worthless since about the only time in baseball you run that far is an extra base hit. Yeah, maybe that should be a shorter metric.
But it is interesting when you looked up the Jerry Rice 40 time, just to see how the difference in valuation of skills that's also, I think, that speaks to our issues with like the Chargers receiving core almost, is that
yes,
they have like stationary ball winners who aren't that fast.
I mean, every team
they don't
has
have a field shifter sort of that they need.
Exactly. And now they're going to lose Keenan Allen and Gerald Everett, it seems like, but due to cap casualties. How are they in this cap situation? They haven't even extended Justin Herbert.
And it's not as if like they're like we've been saying, it's not
I
like
hate them.
This
I hate
lethal
the
wide receiver core, and if they're going to lose parts of it already, I mean, it's just banging our heads against the wall.
6 Foot Bear says Aaron to the Raiders ? I don't know. I think Aaron Rodgers has worn out his welcome completely in Green Bay.
I can never tell whether these like other player from other teams courtship campaigns or anything, or if they're just smoke, like with Devontae Adams replying to a tweet being like, where's Aaron going next? He's like, my next door, he's gonna be my next door neighbor, like stuff like that. I have no idea if that actually has like any sort of value or not.
Aaron Rodgers wants to play with Josh McDaniels. He wants to actually get coached and get
that's the thing.
at.
Yeah,
give me a break. This guy wants to be with his buddies. I mean, I wish he'd just retire, but I guarantee you he's not going to now, because he does not want to be in the same Hall of Fame class as Tom Brady.
Yeah,
and JJ Watt.
And also, the other interesting thing is that I couldn't tell if I don't know if you saw this. He was playing like a golf tournament, and somebody in his earpiece at one of the broadcasters,
not San Fran.
They said not San Fran. So I'm curious if that's just like, again, it's so hard to tell what isn't like a feint or like a sleight of hand with this stuff until it actually happens. But I could even see him like weirdly signing again with Green Bay, or like you said, retiring. I mean, he's gonna be 40 this year. It's certainly possible. I really don't think he's going to the Jets, guys. Though I'm under no illusion that the Hackett acquisition will do anything for that.
J-Man Raps, hey guys, great show with the goated Jason. Very interesting trade deadline. Watch for Phoenix, and I disagree on the Nets Mavericks trade, but God bless. Left is best, and Jason is right about Wilson Emma. LOL. No, I think that's a little fan talk, that he thinks he's not corny and that his teammates hate him. Will from Indiana. Hey, Emma and Bradley. Hope all has been well. I'm in a surprisingly good but moderately stressed mood, mainly because of Indiana men's basketball knocking off number 1 Purdue, and the women's team destroying Purdue on the road and moved up to number 2 in the country.
First win by Indiana men's basketball over a number 1 team since 2013.
Wow.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
No matter what the end result is, this has been a nice senior year for the athletics squad, which I got an internship with recently, so I am actually going to graduate.
Congrats.
Nice.
Well.
It also makes this terrible blues season less agonizing somewhat. What a train wreck. Finally, I want to ask, around the time when the NCAA tournament starts, I was hoping I could call in to give my analysis for the tournament to help people fill out their brackets. It is something I'm pretty knowledgeable about, so I want to give my thoughts on that. Left is ESVN. Will, of course.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Call
and
in.
If you can also just DM me on Twitter. I think we follow each other, so just like send me a message and of course. And the final IM of the day. Majority Report wardrobe coordinator. I'm not a Philly fan, but I'm pulling for Jalen Hurts. I remember when he took that Alabama benching in stride and came back to bail them out in the SEC championship when Tua got hurt. He's always carried himself very well and seems like a good dude. I hope he gets a ring. I know. That's the thing is I actually love Jalen Hurts as a person. Wish he was out of the NFC East. Think he's awesome. Think he's handsome. All those good things.
Strong.
strong
Sculpted
looks.
legs.
Yes. Love everything about him except for the fact that he's on the Eagles. So that's quite unfortunate. All right, actually, final IM of the day. Mind Pillow Guy. Stop avoiding the biggest story in the NFL, you cowards. Do you think Jeffree Star is actually dating an NFL player? And if so, who do you think it is?
Oh my God, my fiance and I have been talking about this. It's so crazy.
Jeffree Star's dating an NFL player?
Have you not seen any of this?
No.
Okay, so we can get into some gossip right before the end of the show. So Jeffree Star has been YouTube, TikTok sensation. Jeffree Star, I think he's kind of like a problematic person as well.
Right, but like makeup artist.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Has been posting stories that he's been like vacationing in Wyoming with this anonymous NFL player, like posting.
Okay, so we can rule out anyone on the Chiefs and Eagles.
Right, posting a guy from the back, like his back, his arms, like his not everything but his face, basically. And he's been dropping like little hints about the guy, like he's not on a team who made the playoffs. He's 6'6", things like that. Some people were speculating that it was like the
I'm
Browns.
looking now. Is he white?
Yes, and it was. Some people were speculating that it was the Browns' Henry Anderson. Henry Anderson's wife like furiously commented on Jeffrey's Instagram, being like, "Henry is at home with his wife and children." Like Jeffrey was like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to implicate you." Same thing with Ethan Pochich, the center for the Browns. Like same thing. Ethan's wife like DM Jeffrey, being like, "It's not Ethan. He's with me." So some psychotic TikTok sleuths have been like isolating like pictures of this guy's forearm, like the inner parts of this guy's forearm, and cross-referencing it with other pictures, and they're pretty certain that it's Bears tight end Cole Kmet.
Okay.
But obviously, total speculation, no confirmation whatsoever. Jeffree Star also could be like, full of hot air and just kind of trying to, have fun with the situation. The guy might not even be an NFL player, who's to say? But
yeah,
that's what's been kind of lighting NFL/TikTok related social media content for the last few days.
that would be. I feel like it could be totally a publicity stunt.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like it could just be completely like just to get people talking about something.
I will be fascinated to know if it is Cole Kmet, but I was a total Cole Kmet fantasy truther this year. I was like, the Bears have no one else to throw to. It's Cole Kmet, and he actually did end up coming on.
Yeah, I think he's good. I think he had a few. There are a few games towards the end of the season, I feel like, where actually he was one of the more reliable targets for Fields to begin with.
Yeah, he's an athletic freak. I have a high opinion of his future. However,
maybe not with.
Maybe don't date Jeffree Star if that's the case, just because he seems kind of problematic. And Cole Kmet, I want you to be happy. I don't know. Anyway, it's probably not Cole Kmet. All right, guys. With that said, I think we're gonna wrap up ESVN today. On Thursday, we will do our Super Bowl picks. There's not much to talk about this week. It's always such a tease in the 2 weeks leading up, but soon we will have the NFL championship for the 2022-2023 season. All right, like the stream, please comment below, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe to our downloads on podcasts, wherever you listen to them. Really appreciate you all. See you on Thursday.
Bye-bye.